You don't need to focus hard. You don't need to be productive. You don't need to take notes or remember anything or finish this. If you stay for a minute, that's enough. If you stay longer, that's fine too. There's nothing urgent here. Just sit with this. For most of human history, speed was rare. Messages took days to arrive. Travel took weeks. News moved slowly, if it moved at all. Waiting was not a problem to be solved. It was simply part of life. Silence was common. Doing one thing at a time was normal. People didn't describe themselves as distracted because there wasn't much to distract them. Then, gradually, systems were built to remove waiting. Faster communication, faster transportation, faster production, faster answers. Each improvement made sense on its own. Waiting less felt helpful. Getting things done sooner felt efficient. Responding quickly felt polite. Nothing about it felt dangerous. Over time, speed stopped being a tool and started becoming an expectation. Replies were no longer something you sent when you could. They became something you were supposed to send immediately. Moments of stillness stopped feeling neutral. They started to feel empty. Doing one thing at a time began to feel slow, and slow began to feel wrong. No one decided this all at once. There was no meeting where attention was traded away. It happened quietly, system by system, update by update. Each change was small enough to accept. Each adjustment felt reasonable. When systems reward speed, people adapt, not because they are weak, but because they are human. Attention wasn't taken by force. It was exchanged. Small pieces, traded for convenience, for efficiency, for the feeling of staying up to date. At first, the trade barely registered. The cost was too subtle to notice. It only became visible later, when staying with one thing started to feel difficult. Longer. The strange part is that nothing obvious broke. Life didn't collapse. Work continued. Entertainment improved. Information became easier to access. On the surface, everything looked fine. But underneath, the pace kept increasing. Moments became shorter. Interruptions became normal. Silence became something to fill. Attention stopped being a place you stayed and became something you visited briefly before moving on. This isn't a story about technology. It's a story about rhythm, about what happens when the tempo of life slowly speeds up and we adjust without noticing. Imagine listening to music that gets faster by a fraction of a beat each day. Not enough to notice in the moment. But months later, the song feels stressful, even though you can't explain why. That's how pace changes. Quietly, gradually, without asking for permission. When everything moves quickly, slowing down can feel uncomfortable. Not because something is wrong, but because the contrast is unfamiliar. Stillness can feel restless. Focus can feel effortful. Not because attention is broken, but because it's out of practice. This isn't about blame. No generation caused this. No group decided it. No single invention explains it. It's simply what happens when efficiency becomes the default value. And yet, something interesting happens when the pace drops, even slightly. Breathing becomes noticeable again. Thoughts stop competing as aggressively. Time feels less fragmented. Not immediately, not dramatically, just enough to feel different. Sitting here is already different, not because you're fixing anything, but because you're not rushing past this moment. You don't need to hold on to every word. You don't need to understand this fully. You don't need to agree with it. Being here is enough. Attention doesn't return through force. It returns through familiarity. through spending time in places where nothing is demanding it. For a long time, speed felt like progress, and in many ways, it was. But speed isn't neutral. It shapes how we think, how we listen, how long we stay. This is not an argument for going backward. It's an invitation to notice, to experience what a slower moment feels like, without trying to optimize it. You don't need to do anything after this. You don't need to change your habits today. There's no assignment waiting. Staying for this long is already a quiet act of resistance, not against technology, but against constant urgency. If you felt restless at any point, that's normal. If your mind wandered, that's normal too. Attention isn't something you command. It's something you spend time with. There's nothing else you need to do right now. If you're here tomorrow, we'll sit again. If you're not, that's okay too. Nothing urgent, just time.